And we are live. And from now on, I just need to switch off the sound somewhere. And we are live. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy that we are here today again on our Roastrum. Roastrum is a community kind of event when we try to get together with roasters from all over the world and just chat about things that we care about, roasting, business, coffee, people, and try to bring very interesting topics and discuss them. So, in my opinion, this format is a little bit more insightful than just listening a lecture, because we can talk, we can chat, we can ask each other questions and share the experience. So thank you everyone for coming, and those who are watching this live later on. My name is Jane. And on behalf of On Stronghold, I'm running those panels. Myself, I'm also a roaster, I'm a brewer, I'm a certified judge for roasting and brewing competitions. So I love coffee from all those sides, from all sides of the table, let's put it this way. And today we're going to try to speak about an interesting business model of bringing a cafe to roastery, or a roasting cafe. And I want to introduce the amazing panelists that we have today. Emmanuel is from Lithuania, Kappa from Finland, and Michael from Pennsylvania, United States of America. So maybe we can start with an introduction round. And I would ask you to tell a little bit more about your background, your coffee background, and overall, what in coffee and roasting and the cafe life have you been doing? So Michael, can we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. My name is Michael Caro. I'm here at our cafe, Nook Bakery and Coffee Bar in Philadelphia. Together with my wife, Edna, we've been cafe owner and operators for, about over 15 years now. And I think I have the gray in my beard to prove it. I still have my morning voice here. It's quite early in Philly, a little bit past 6 o'clock. Believe it or not, I'm not really a morning person, but coffee certainly helps. And today I'm drinking Nicaraguan coffee from Jairo and Fatima's farm that was sourced to us by Gold Mountain coffee growers. And it's delicious. And right now, I would say my wife, she's been baking here in Philadelphia professionally for the last, I would say, 14 years. When we first started our cafe, neither one of us were baking or roasting. And through a rather spontaneous opportunity about 5 years ago, I had the chance to learn about the Stronghold company and the S7 Pro roaster, and it just really sparked a whole new passion for coffee. Prior to that, we were using local roasters, and it's just been an amazing ride, an amazing experience, and we've learned a lot. We're both self-taught in our respective fields, and the amazing thing is we're still learning every day, and feedback from customers and other coffee professionals has been integral to that, and we're glad to be here and also hopefully share some insights that are going to be helpful for folks that are thinking about perhaps roasting in their cafes.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much for your intro. So, Emmanuel, if we could move to you, tell us a little bit more about your interesting background and your coffee trip too.
Hi, everyone. And well, my coffee trip is about 10 years old. Let's say, 10 years ago, I started to play coffee. I still playing it. I still treating it as a very nice, enthusiastic game. And before I was in advertising, but somehow I really was enjoying long coffee breaks, and this passion to coffee, I would say, came from my family. At the moment, we are like really sound more like a family coffee manufacturer, because my wife joins me and helps me a lot. and hopefully one day our little daughter also step in with all her kind of, let's say, knowledge or enthusiasm. But my idea from the beginning was to treat coffee a bit like, how to say, creative thing, and maybe it might sound very naive or strange, but I see coffee as a, let's say, musician sees notes, and when you know notes, you can start to create something new. So I'm really interested not only in roasting. I'm doing this for, yeah, let's say 10 years, but I started in a pan, and now we use Gießen, small Gießen, planning to buy a bigger one. And also I like to maybe create some kind of new products connected to coffee, and it can be very local, very simple things, like cups from clay, to maybe some brewing instrument. Also, I'm really passionate about educating people, but somehow opposite to this very specialty coffee seriousness, geekiness, with all respect to that, I try to be as down to earth as possible. And during, let's say, our events and tastings, I try to attract people who are only just, let's say, like coffee, without trying to push them directly into specialty. I try to understand the differences, and maybe in a very slow steps, let them to take this very tasty path of great coffee. A couple years ago, I finished my book on coffee, and hopefully this year it will be published in English. But these news we'll just share when they are ready. So at the moment, just enjoying this life connected to this dark drink.
Amazing. You are also the inventor of a Bro coffee maker, which is quite an interesting invention. And you also are an organizer of the Dark Times conference, right?
Yeah, you are right. Although at the moment because of I was putting a lot of energy in writing a book, I just decided with my colleagues to stop organizing for a while, but hopefully later on we'll restart events. But, because of the pandemic, actually, we are kind of might have some virtual Dark Times conference. But yeah, we'll see.
I'm in for the next one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Capo, tell us about yourself.
There's not much yet. I've been working in coffee for around 10 years. Firstly, I started volunteering, then I started working in coffee shops, and then after a while, I decided that now it's time to either move abroad and develop further, or then set up my own company here in Finland. So I founded One Day Coffee Company, and now I run a roastery here in Finland, and I do occasional coffee consultancy work for other companies, and I compete a lot. I compete a lot in coffee because I think it's fun. I think it's one wonderful platform to share ideas, share new resources, new development factors, or something interesting that I found out in coffee. And I'm looking forward to the World Burst Championships, so which unfortunately just were canceled again. So
well, you can wait for the world stage just a little bit more.
Yeah.
So those are our great speakers today. So let's jump right into the middle of our topic. Maybe Capo, we will start with you. Tell us a little bit about your business model. It's a coffee shop and a roastery, but also as a shop. Yes. How did you come up with idea, and how did you select a roaster? What were you looking for in a roaster?
Well, first of all, yes, you're right. My space is a roastery and a tasting room. It's two adjoining rooms next to each other, with the wall that's behind me that's been cut open to join the two rooms. And on the other room, there is a sort of I call it a lab space, where there's the roaster, the Stronghold of 7, and there's some other gear, some other stuff. And then on the other side, where I'm right now sitting, there is my espresso
all the gear I need actually to make coffee for people and to customers. Customers can also come in. They can like look at the coffee bags that I have for retail. I had some gear, some equipment that they might need, filters, brewing devices. Nothing much, super minimal, nothing excessive. And I thought it was weird that we had coffee shops with a separate roastery somewhere totally different, somewhere separated from the actual like where everything happens, where customer can actually taste the coffee, customer can buy that bag of beans, but it's still very disconnected from the actual roasting operation. So I thought that I wanted to combine the two in order to create a coherent experience to the customer who can come into the tasting room and then see everything happening on the other side. And that's how I kind of like decided to go around having a separated roastery. Or instead of having a separated roastery from a coffee shop, I decided to combine the two. And I decided to go with the Stronghold because, first of all, it was electric. That allows me, because Finland is really weird that way, that we can choose how our electricity is produced. So all the electricity that are utilized in this space is actually produced utilizing solar and wind energy. So all the roasting is also happening with that energy. So it's 100% sustainable. So that was also really something that I was really interested in. And I didn't want to go with a standard roasting machine like a Loring or a Probat or a Gießen, because I couldn't deal with the latency of gas and the accumulated heat transfer. That was something I couldn't deal with. I wanted something that was like almost second by second, that would allow me to make minute adjustments based on flavor profiles and parameters that I would deem necessary for the coffee.
So geeky adjustments. Thank you, Capo. Emanuelis, let's jump right to you because I know that your space is also quite big and it incorporates the roaster in the middle of it. And you've been roasting for quite some time, and the Gießen was actually your choice. Tell us a little bit more about the Crooked Nose and Coffee Stories, as the concept behind it, because you have so many interesting ideas incorporated in this concept. Share, how did you decide to open up this spot? When did you start roasting? What were you looking for while looking for a roaster?
Yeah, I'll try. I think it's nice that you came up with the word concept, because let's say our place, you can call it cafe, but we are not normal cafe, because at the moment, let's say before pandemic, we worked only 3 days. We were open for public, and in our place, people could drink only coffee and only brewed by hand. We don't use any espresso machines. We don't have effects like, let's say, milk, sugar, etc. And we have a selection of our the coffee toys we'd love to use, let's say AeroPress, Chemex, Bro, Japanese nail drip, siphon, etc. And other 3 days were supposed only for roasting, because we also roast for ourselves and our partners. 1 day is supposed and it was used for educational purposes. So let's say we usually had, like last summer even, we had a couple events every day for people who want to learn like basics on coffee, who want to learn about coffee and food pairings, etc. And we also last year started a coffee roasting workshop for those who want to maybe step very first kind of steps into understanding what roasting is. But our Gießen machine is like totally fits into our concept. Like it's totally analog. We don't use any computers, and I decided to play about it because I understand all the geekiness, all the seconds, all the importances of, let's say, measurements, but still I decided to enjoy my own senses. And it might sound very radical, it might sound maybe very archaic, but that is the idea about our place. We want to use our own senses, and actually, yeah, we can use, like, let's say, written roasting. We are using written roasting forms, so we can repeat things. But of course, when you don't have a screen, some roasts, let's say, can be sometimes a little bit more different than others, but they are not radically different. Let's say I still trust my nose, as we roast for every our partner personally. We don't have the same roast to everyone, very, very rarely. I'm talking about constant partners like other cafes, I don't know, offices, etc. So I'm trying to let people understand that coffee can be a very huge spectrum. And let's say if you go to a very good restaurant, that's the idea also behind that, or a very good example. And the chef knows you, he will prepare the food for you. Not like his standard thing, but something a bit more personalized. And I just like to play behind that idea that you can play about it, also about coffee, because still I treat it as a very natural thing which came not from the laboratory but from nature. So every harvest is a bit different, and I try to relax about that. I'm not trying to control. Maybe my previous work and my education burned me, because I used to study IT. And I was kind of, let's say, a bit more into geeky side of life. And at the moment, I'm just trying to really find coffee as a more, let's see, relaxing thing. But that doesn't mean that I'm improvising a lot on roasting. Still, I really like to roast my coffee very, very differently. And on weekly basis, let's say if someone comes 1 week, he can try, let's say, one coffee roasted very lightly, because I want to just show the fruitiness, the high notes of coffee. But at the same time, maybe next week I will try to roast a bit dark or medium to dark, just to see the potential of coffee, because I believe still good coffee can be roasted very differently, and there can't be any, let's say, best roasting formula. And all you need maybe to a bit trust your own nose, of course have experience, and we don't do radical things. That doesn't mean we let people drink or give people drink to unroasted coffee or burnt coffee. Maybe it can sound fun, because I know the ancient countries like, I don't know, Syria or even Yemen and maybe Turkey had these options of blending green coffee with roasted coffee. So some people are used to that. Yeah, it's I mean, very ancient recipes to get very strange drinks, sometimes not even called coffee, but it's part of their culture, the culture which is sometimes 500, 600, 700 years old, and you can't beat it sometimes. So
that's a cool approach to blending.
Very radical blending. So our place is more about letting people to enjoy the spectrum of coffee, different origins, and also a spectrum of tools, and by avoiding technique as much as possible. So we're just trying to, let's say, still I would use word to play around coffee. Yeah.
Sounds amazing. Are you still not using any paper filters in the cafe?
No, we actually don't use any at the moment. Yeah, I think for last 2 or 3 years we don't use any Even any paper cups, we don't have coffee for takeaway. You can only drink coffee inside. I mean, you can have like, let's say, your own cup of coffee for takeaway, and we will brew it. But we really ask people to enjoy coffee a bit more slowly. Yeah, we have slow coffee bar, and we decided to get rid of all the, let's say, one-time using things. And we are not, I would say, fanatics behind that, but somehow we like things which can be used and reused and reused. That's why we're using, let's say, as an alternative, our linen filters. We just produced them for V60 and Chemex and for our bra. But for AirPress and Chemex, we also like to use stainless steel by Able Brewing Company in United States. And we use some other cloth, usually cotton filters for siphon or nail drip, Japanese technique. So it's just a part of what we like, and also it's very subjective. You know, I would never say that I don't like the taste of brewed coffee with paper filter. I just have explanation for myself, because I just miss a bit of the body. Coffee for me should be, well, it would sound strange, but strong, a bit kind of, and sometimes I dislike the effect of paper, not the paperness, but the effect of reducing some kind of tastes from the coffee. You know, it's like a bit of a symphony when you decide to leave only the violins. You don't use any drum, any bass, or etc. So I just like when coffee is a bit like a symphony. So I need everything, a bit of bitterness, a bit of sweetness, a nice mouthfeel. And I really miss it usually done with paper filters. But that would not mean that I, you know, like see paper filters as an evil or something else. And just
there is also a sustainability factor in this. I mean,
yeah. Now it also sounds like a bit we are on wave in fashion with all the sustainable things, but we were doing the same 10 years ago. We started with that. We never used paper filters. So yeah, sometimes people, when you start to explain, you know, what we do, they just look at us a bit like, oh, these are like,
weird, right?
Like you can't talk anything but only sustainability with them. No, I mean, I will always try great coffee in different coffee places, brewed on paper, and but just, you know, it's just not my cup of coffee, and that's it.
That's fantastic that you have a style. Thank you, Michael. Nook Bakery and Coffee. Tell us all about the concept and then why you started to roast, how you started to roast, and what changed for you. Michael, you are on mute. This is the most popular phrase of the year.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so when I first dreamed up the idea of a coffee shop over, 16, 17 years ago, I was working for a big corporation. I was a product manager for medical imaging equipment that's used in minimally invasive surgeries. I was traveling all over the country or working in my cubicle. And I thought, you know, when I would have a chance, I would go down to the break room for a cup of coffee. And there was always a line of people. And I realized that this is where the real conversations were occurring. This is where people were talking to each other about their weekend, what their kids were up to, vacation plans. And this is where, like, the community, we actually had a small little community down in the bottom floor of this large office building. And I thought, well, at that time I was feeling a little bit disconnected from the rest of the world and in our neighborhood here in Philadelphia. I was living in Philly, but I was commuting outside of Philly to basically an office park, and I felt, you know, I wanted a sense of connection. So I thought maybe I'll start a coffee shop. I also had this entrepreneurial bug, something just inside me that said, you know, I want to have my own business. My first jobs were working for larger corporations. And then at that time too, I met on a business trip out in San Francisco. I was meeting up with a good friend after a business trip. And he said, I'm going to have some friends out here. Would you like to come join us? I said, sure. And at that time, one of those mutual friends of his happened to be who is now my wife, Edna. And we started dating long distance. We didn't really think anything would come of it, but we kept in touch. We had a connection. And at that time, I shared with her the dream of opening a coffee shop, and kind of a crazy dream. And she was crazy enough about me maybe to say, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So after a year, she moved across country. We had the discussion. It's time one of us needs to make a move. And I said, okay. At that time I had what they would say the more stable or the bigger job. And so she moved here. She was managing dental offices at that time for 17 years. So she also felt like she could get a job anywhere. And she was great with people. She was the one that would keep the customers, the clients, the patients coming back into the office. I mean, to have all kinds of painful things done to your teeth, and in your mouth. Nobody likes to go to the dentist. So at that time, I didn't even realize what a wonderful partner I had to, start a coffee shop with. And I was in awe of how she was able to make these instant connections with people and just, from all walks of life. And that was one of the things that always attracted me to science and medicine. I have a medical background too. A master's degree in the medical sciences and an undergraduate degree in biology. But one of the things I really appreciated about medicine is just being able to interact with people from all walks of life. And, medicine is a universal thing. And when you understand the body and how it works, you can do a lot of good. I just wasn't that, I was a little concerned with how the medical system is set up here in the US in terms of insurance and things like that. So that's a whole nother topic. But the universality of coffee, I find also is what drew me to medicine and science. And I still find that here. So she was crazy enough to start this coffee shop with me. So at that time, we were just sourcing baked goods from other vendors. We were sourcing coffee from other coffee roasters. And we did that for about 5 years at this one location on a bridge about 6 blocks from our current location. And but after the first year, we realized if we really want to make money, we need to bake our own things. So she started baking. We started shifting over towards from sourcing coffee from Ely Café to roasters out in the West Coast, because it seemed like that was where the real passion and the first, transition into specialty coffee, for us at least, seemed to really happen. So we were sourcing coffees from the West Coast, bringing them in. Then we switched to a coffee roaster in the Midwest that was able to do a specialty blend for us. They were willing to work with us, even though we were very small quantities in terms of a customer. And then we moved towards local roasters because we realized that there's certainly some more sustainable aspects to that rather than shipping coffee all across either the world or the country. And also freshness, certain aspects of freshness and advantages that can certainly be gained with having coffee roasted locally and being able to use it that much faster. But after 5 years, we closed that location and we moved to another location closer to the skyscrapers here in Center City, and being able to tap into this tremendous amount of foot traffic from the office buildings. And we were making a lot more connections in the community. A lot of our customers followed us over from the original location. We're meeting now a whole new level of clientele, a lot more working professionals, lawyers, doctors, people in IT, people in startup companies, graduate students that now live here in this part of the city as opposed to towards University City. And one day, serendipitously, I got an email. I get emails all the time. Would you like to meet about this new concept or that new concept? And this was an email from a Wharton student at the Wharton School of Business here in Philadelphia. And he says, would you have 20 minutes to talk about the market potential or possible uses of a coffee roaster in a cafe? And I said, well, I've never roasted before. This sounds interesting. I don't know how much information I can really give you, how much insight I can give you, never being a roaster, but sure.
Wow, so it came basically from a student making research.
Right, no research. So we had this meeting, and he said, you know, well, we have this. Actually, it came about that I learned that they have this roaster. A friend of one of the Wharton students who was in the entrepreneurial club had started and founded this coffee roasting company in Korea. And I said, well, that sounds amazing. He said their goal was to be able to transform cafes into roastery cafes. And I said, well, that sounds exciting. We have a little background noise. I'm sorry, we're getting ready to open up soon here. So hopefully you can still hear me. But so they said, what do you think? I said, that sounds exciting. They said, would you like to see this roaster? I said, sure. So the next thing we did is we went, they had this S7 at a local roaster that was going to be experimenting with it to give them feedback. But the thing is, they were so busy with their own business, they didn't have a whole lot of time to give them feedback on this roaster, it seems like to me. So, but we went ahead and did a trial roast. We did a small roast of an Ethiopian Yirgacheffe, and they showed me the buttons and how it works. Just basically simple controls, how you adjust the halogen light, how you adjust from a scale of 1 to 10 the convection heat, and then later on, the next model was also allowing you to finer control over the speed of the impeller. So you're basically just controlling with very simple features, heat transfer to the green coffee beans, which I guess is a fundamental concept of any roaster. And I have to confess, I have no other experience with any other roasters except for this S7. And as sleek and as sophisticated and with high tech as it looks, with the touch screen and these finite controls, it's extremely simple to use. And it records every single roast as it's happening, down to the second, down to the 0.1 degree Fahrenheit for us, or Celsius for Europeans, and it's very repeatable. And I can understand some roasters would say, we don't want to have technology that get in the way of roasting. And it is an art, it is a science, but at the same time, I find one thing that was really amazing to me with this roaster is that I had a customer come back to me. Some customers I would do custom roasts, or some customers would say, I really like this Brazilian, but it's just a touch too dark. Would you be able to do that just a little lighter for me? And now larger scale roasters would probably say, sure, if you're ordering 50 pounds or 100 pounds of coffee a week from me, I'll do it for you. But we have this ability here, and also with business being much slower with the pandemic, admittedly, I said, and it's a customer I've known for years who's been very supportive. And I said, sure, you know what? Normally, it's not something that we would do, but I said, I could do that. So I pulled up the roast profile that I had for Brazilian Peaberry, and I just basically dropped the roast about 10 seconds, 13 seconds earlier, and with a temperature difference of maybe 1 degree Celsius. And I was trying to bring it just a little bit lighter, hoping that it would be maybe just a little bit sweeter, a little smoother. And I gave it to him. He said, that coffee you gave me was fantastic. So that I found really interesting. And I think Rob Hoos also had written about this in his book. I think it was Modulating the Flavor Profile of Coffee, where he had done so many roasts, right? And he was able to see how the flavors progress from maybe berry to stone fruit, or maybe the florals could be more pronounced if you used, just a little bit lower drop temperature or a little bit less development time. And he was basically recording and charting temperature or differences in flavor with just 5 seconds difference in drop times, or very minute differences in temperature drops, or when the roast would be completed. And I said, well, gosh, now I have this ability here. I haven't been going about it quite as scientifically, but it is quite amazing to be able to have that level of control. And then you're able to really kind of see or plot taste differences. I can look at this curve and I can say, the only thing that I would share with Stronghold that maybe might be really interesting is if we could draw our ideal roast curve on the screen prior to roasting, and then really taste what that difference might be. But we're basically able to guide the roast to get that curve that we want, and it's recorded in real time. So I think that for me is just, it's quite fascinating, and it's continually enthralling. It's this merging of science and sensorial experience that really keeps me engaged. I think sometimes science can be rather dry and can be very scientific with all the charts and formulas and all these things, but the sensorial aspect, being able to taste and smell the aromas and see how small, minute changes can really affect the flavor profile for me, that's continually fascinating. And then to see what the farmers are doing at origin and all the experimentation they're doing with carbonic maceration or double fermentation and all the innovation that's happening at the farms. And they're not scientists, but they understand. And some of them maybe do have more scientific backgrounds, but they understand that some of the things that they're happening during fermentation can really steer the flavor profiles of a coffee in a certain direction. And I think that's quite fascinating too, thinking about how flavors can be engineered at the farm level. And then our main job as roasters is just not to screw it up. We want to highlight all the hard work that's being done at the farm. As you all know, I mean, there's coffee passes through so many different hands before it finally gets to the end consumer or the barista behind the bar or the barista at home. And have such respect and reverence for this agricultural crop that it's just it's an amazing inspiration too.
Concept basically, you were not looking for a roaster, but you understood the possibilities of starting roast, and you were not looking to learn roasting and being like a geeky person about it. You just needed to have it sustainable, automatic, and actually making it able to come to become.
Correct. It wasn't something that I was looking for, and I think that also speaks to. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, a lot of people are migrating out of cities. They're saying, we're going to be working from home. They're trying to be socially distant. But I think one of the points that one of our customers pointed out is that cities are incubators for innovation. If I had not been located here in the city and had this contact with the student who was going to school at the nearby university, if I was out in the country somewhere, which is always like an idyllic kind of vision in my head that I would love to be roasting coffee somewhere in this bucolic setting, maybe on a coffee farm, maybe that's still somewhere in my future. But I probably would never have encountered this kind of opportunity, this machine.
Well, just to say, I'm not in a farm, but I'm in the middle of the forest. So basically, roasting very, very far away from city. Okay, then guys, let's jump more into more discussion. So Emmanuel has already shared how he's building his schedule of roasting days, non-roasting days, and so on. And Michael, Kappa, how are you guys managing the time when you need to roast and actually need to do all the other stuff? Do you have a schedule? How does it look like for you? Kappa, maybe you can start?
Yeah, right now, I'm still working around for that, or around just roasting almost like 3 days a week. But I try to keep 2 days in between to manage all the orders, manage all the quality control, cuppings. So what I've done to it is developed a sort of like a 3, because I work on only 5 days right now. So on Mondays I roast, on Tuesdays I cup, on Wednesdays I roast again, and on Thursdays I cup again. And then on Friday I do if there's a need for it, I'll do another set of roasts. But that way I found out that you can get a really good idea on what you're roasting, especially with the stronghold, because you can cup the samples like 24 hours after. So that way I've found out that you can retain your roast quality. You can track it better than you could if you were doing like a weekly cupping or one cupping every 2 weeks. Because right now I have too many business customers, so I might actually need to get a bigger roaster or a second stronghold because I'm actually being oversaturated by the customers with the one standard S7.
So maybe a bigger roaster and a downtown roastery is your next step.
Maybe.
Michael, and you, how do you schedule your roasting days, and how do you meet the demand of the market?
I really don't have a schedule for roasting. Sometimes I can be a very technical person, but in terms of schedules, I like to fly a little more by the seat of my pants, I guess. And being so closely connected to the product, I mean, I can be roasting, and then I can have an automatic profile that's already set and the roaster is going, and I can also help make a drink for the customer behind the bar. I mean, I'm so closely connected to the product that I can visually scan my workspace and see, okay, how low are we on inventory? How low are we on the components for our Philly blend? What are my online orders looking like right now? So, and with the roaster being so quick to warm up, for me, it warms up in 20 minutes. I mean, there have been times when I think I'm done roasting for the day, and then I get a small surge of online orders, and I can just turn the roaster back on. In 20 minutes, it's warmed up, and then I'll roast several more batches so that I can get these orders out by the end of the day. So it's tremendous flexibility, and also the cost efficiency for the roasting, since it's electric. And I'm not an electrical engineer by any means, but some of the calculations I did based on our kilowatt usage and what we pay per kilowatt here, I mean, I was coming out with like less than 20 cents per roast, which was like, and I don't know how that compares to natural gas roasters, but
it's a good price, actually. Also, where you are in the world.
Yeah, so I mean, and it's also been wonderful for us too with this pandemic, with our dramatic drop in office customers. We moved to this location to secure all this office foot traffic. They moved out back to the suburbs or back, to their homes. They're no longer commuting here. But this was also offering us a portal to now get to expand our customer base. Instead of the customers coming to Nook is now coming to our customers, and we're able to serve our customers at home with the new mission of helping them brew better coffee at home. And so now we're sending out coffees a lot more. I mean, our mail order subscriptions have gone up by more than double. So, well, not subscriptions, but mail orders have gone up by more than double. We are getting ready to roll out a subscription service soon. So that's another exciting aspect. So it just brings so much extra hope and opportunity when these times have been so challenging. And, I think the roaster came along for us 5 years ago at a time when we were getting stuck in the daily grind of coffee roasting. It's a wonderful experience, but when you are serving customers day after day after day after day, and you're focused on speed and quality, which are often at odds with each other, it can be literally a grind. And then this roasting opportunity came along, and I said, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I would go to roasters sometimes and say, can you lighten up that roast just a little bit, or can we get a little more chocolate out? And they would tell me.
A lot of personal touch from the customers in it.
And they would say, no, we can't do that for you unless you're going to be like a dedicated wholesale account, And I said, okay. And then now I have this opportunity to control the flavors and steer them in the direction that I would like to present, and then see how one coffee can change dramatically. Can almost taste like two different coffees just by how you roast it. Getting a Central American coffee that can taste like a Kenyan coffee, which is amazing. I used to think Central American coffees were, washed mild coffees were pleasant, but never like exciting, or we didn't have that vibrant acidity that I would crave in a Kenyan. And now all of a sudden, because of what they're doing at the farm,
let's jump into more. I wanted to jump into more discussion and more questions about from the operational and business perspective inside. Like being like your schedule, we already discussed about it a little bit. Being a roastery and a cafe. So how do you guys like your value streams? How do you define them? I mean, roasting coffee is one of them, brewing the coffee is another one. Then if you have like, for example, Manuel's and Capos, they don't really have the desserts and bakery, you Michael do, but just trying to compare maybe some pre-corona time, or just like imagine a little bit, roasted coffee and selling the roasted coffee as a value stream, is that a bigger one than being a cafe overall, like brewing one? And we do not count that having your own roasted coffee is an enabler for brewing it, right? We just separate those value streams. So being a roastery and selling roaster coffee, how big % of your income is that overall? Emmanuel, if we start with you and then have everyone.
Yeah, no problem. I'll try to answer. Actually, our, let's say, coffee budget or coffee money income consists of like totally different parts. And Café, when it was active, then educational events, we do them, a lot of them, then roasting, and mainly roasting for partners. And actually, I think all of these parts were like very separate, but at the same time adding the same amount of income to our pie. And now everything changed, and now our main income is through online shop, and we roast actually a lot to some clients. Let's say orders are getting really like high, and I even think some people now have the cafes in their houses because they even buy more than, let's say, some of our very small partners with like 5 to, I don't know, to 8 kilos per month. Only like one person, probably he shares with his family, but it's still, it's crazy. Some of our partners were buying, let's say, 3-4 kilos per month because they are not specializing in coffee, they're only having. So I think normally it's like 1/3 of our income, and the roasting. But also, you know, if you take 1 year as it's very wavy. Some of the seasons, like, I don't know, winter season is higher than summer season. Also, I don't know, now it's super hard to do any decisions, any suggestions, and even it's very strange to look back, because now everything so changed that I don't know, it might happen that maybe if we'll reopen on summer, and because it's still in Lithuania, you can't have coffee inside, it's more for takeaway. And only a couple of our partners are taking coffee from us for, let's say, for selling it, because some of them even closed because of a pandemic. So maybe in summer, when they reopen, we will return to some like normal summer season, and our roasting for clients will be again 1/3 of our income. But at the moment, I could say that roasting is the main thing we do, because every day me and my wife goes to the cafe. We change our weekly, let's say, work hours, because every day people can come and pick up their orders from our cafe, or we just send it by post. But I roast every day for 3-4 hours, sometimes 5 hours.
Okay, that's a lot.
I think I'm roasting even more than it used to be before the pandemic. But, you know, we had no online store before, because all we were doing, it was just a local orders. And sometimes we were shipping to people who were like really somewhere outside Lithuania and wanted to try our coffee, but it was like really small percentage. And now everything changed so much that kind of we really need a bigger roaster, because we have 1.5 kilo Gießen, and we are about to buy a bigger, and we want to buy 10 times bigger roaster. So it will be too big for us, but you know, it's better to have too big and then expand. Hopefully,
and roast every day. Yes, that's
then roast every day, because sometimes I really get too tired by just repeating and repeating things, and knowing that I could do one big batch of the same coffee and not 5 of them. So so it's, you know, it's very hard to compare what we had with now what's happening now.
I'm so glad to hear that your sales actually increased. Meaning that, yeah, like some businesses were like coffee shops were just basically killed by a pandemic, and you managed to survive and just transfer your business model. Like being a cafe and a roastery gives you a possibility to transfer the business model.
Yeah, we actually change a lot, and we rethinking our future model, because we see it might not work the same way, because I really wasn't happy brewing coffee with my mask on, with people sitting with masks. It became a bit like a very strange theater. I mean, it's reality, but still it was very uncomfortable to let people enjoy coffee in a very simple way. And we even thinking that we will not reopen our brew bar, coffee bar for public until we are unable to have our, let's say, noses open and tables open normally. So yeah, me and my wife rethinking a lot about what the future should bring to us, and we are having very new concepts in general. So yeah.
Okay. Michael, and tell us a little bit more about how that value stream looked for you. I mean, before the pandemic, the sales of roasted coffee, and now in a percentage of your overall income.
Yeah, I mean, I would say before the pandemic, retail or bags of coffee that we would sell to the public were a fairly small percentage. I would say, gosh, probably less than 10%. Maybe 5 to 10% of the business. Most of the coffee that I was roasting about 70 pounds or about 35 kilos a week, just for use primarily at our cafe, with a very small subset for retail bags that people would take home. And certainly with the pandemic and our foot traffic dropping by, I mean, the customer traffic on the streets in Philadelphia has dropped about 50 to 75%, depending on the specific street. But that's gone down dramatically. But like, again, I was saying with the roaster, now this is our portal to now bring our Nook into people's homes. So our retail sales online have, I mean, our retail coffee bags have more than doubled. And the online store too was something that was a small subset of our business. We didn't really focus a whole lot on it. And now we've completely redesigned our website. We have a lot of our customers now ordering for takeout on our online, on our website. So it's another example, I think, of technology really enabling us to evolve and to sustain through this kind of fairly dark time of the pandemic, but still stay connected. And now it presents a new opportunity to build community virtually and through written letters. I include a written note with most of the coffees that I send out.
Wow, it's so nice. Wow.
So, because, you know, it's not all about technology. How often you get a handwritten note from even a good friend nowadays? It's all via text, via email. And so people have shared with me that they really appreciate that. And I think it's just we're just challenged as to how we will build community through this. And I think when we come out of the pandemic, we're going to have two communities: the community that comes to the cafe and the community that we're serving through the mail.
I mean, it's so great to be able to adjust to having a double business model. Kappa, you were actually been opening up right in the middle of pandemic, and you've been opening up like as a double concept. Tell us a little bit more how challenging it was, and how your expectations and reality actually came out in comparison.
Yeah, it's actually been a really interesting time here in Finland, because Finland, we're so up north and nobody really comes here like during like early like the first quarter of the year, because it's so cold up here. But it hasn't been that challenging. I think people are ready for something new. People are and especially the concept that I kind of want to introduce to them. were already kind of waiting for it. The Helsinki and the Finnish coffee market, I think, has a little bit of a problem with specialty coffee because everybody's so set in their ways in regards to roasting styles, coffee selection, everything like that. And the one-day coffee concept, it actually launched really well, and it's still growing, even though it's a time like this. And I'm finding it really fascinating because it wasn't the way I envisioned it to go. I kind of envisioned it to be a grind for at least 3-4 months up to summer, and then it would start picking up. But now it's like people are ordering, as both of you have said, people are ordering from online stores. They're ordering bigger quantities. They're ordering better quality beans when everybody else in Helsinki and in the Nordics are actually scaling down their production, choosing lower quality beans that are cheaper, that are more safer options. I think what One Day Coffee Company offered to people was an option to go the other way, where they could go for a higher quality bean, something like Finca Deborah, something like La Palma Sidra Bio Innovation, or something really, really fascinating. And there's so much good feedback from my customers, and they want more, which is really interesting. So like in terms of like sales, I think 90% to 85% of my sales are just retail bags, and it's going to customers, and some of it is going to business customers. And the whole business is growing in a time like this, which is something really weird, and I didn't expect it, and I don't have it's really hard to describe because it goes against the model of, like, because I have a background in marketing as well, so like I was like this goes against every model I was taught at school, and it's really weird, but I'm just trying to get people as much of the better coffee I can. So
you actually touched one of my next question. I like that it's going the same direction. Basically, the traditional roasteries, biggest sales are B2B, obviously, to restaurants, cafes, and so on. Of course, most of them have increased in B2C sales over the pandemic times, as businesses are not consuming a lot of coffees. And what about you guys? I mean, being a cafe, I mean, is it you compete with your neighbors with your coffee? So the question is, like if we take before pandemic times and now, just to compare, what are your sales? Are they in coffees? Are they more like, now it's obviously more like B2C, as you mentioned, but before pandemic, was it more business to customer sales, if we speak about coffee sales, or did you have some business customers like cafes, maybe offices and so on, just to understand what percentages of your sales were B2B? Just like out of your head, if you can recall. Michael, do you remember how it was?
Oh my gosh, B2B was like 0%.
Really?
Yes. It was just mostly, we're doing 750 gram batches at a time. Like I said, most of the roasting I did was really just for our cafe. And then we would sell some retail bags to customers. We have now, since the pandemic, picked up one office customer, a small amount. The other interesting opportunity too, be able to do a couple of Zoom sessions with a couple of law firms, one in DC, Washington, DC, another one in Chicago, where I would send them a kit and send them pre-ground coffee, and we would brew and taste the coffee together. So that was really something that's kind of amazing, and I think maybe a new opportunity for us too that we would like to take advantage of in the future. Again, bringing our Nook to the offices instead of the offices coming to us now, since everyone's working from home and having this community experience. So I think there's, it's a challenging time for sure, but challenge inspires innovation, and there's always new opportunities that come from that.
Nice. Emmanuel, and you, how many B2B did you sell, and where is there only offices or some cafes and restaurants as well?
We had, let's say, before pandemic, active like 10 to 15 partners, mainly cafes or restaurants, some offices. So I think in general it was 70% B2B, and then from the people who coming to our place and buying our beans. Actually, just at the beginning, before pandemic started, I think we restarted, and maybe sometimes we had months when it was 50-50, like orders from the cafes and people buying our bags, etc. But still it was, we are more focused into our constant partners. Because I think I don't remember we had any partner we lost when we started to work. Some of the partners we've been now working for, I don't know, 7-8 years. We just said to some partners no, but it was just very first steps when we were thinking some people want to work with us, but we thought our, let's say, values are totally different. But in general, our partners, like our business clients, were growing, and then it happened. And now we kind of definitely sell more to the normal people, let's say, not the businesses. And we never thought that we could kind of also sell this all over our country, because we were mainly focused in our own city, Vilnius. And with the help of online, now we reachable easily, and we just wanna, to a bit expand this kind of thing, to start selling more coffee overseas, because we don't have our website ready in English language. We just somehow okay with focusing in our local clients. So again, it's nice to remember, but I think somehow you need to restart thinking again, and took pandemic as a normal fundament. So if anyone from our listeners are about to open his or her own business, I think you need to try to understand how people are using coffee at home. And I think Kap also told that his expectations were lower, but I think he also noticed that more and more people are consuming more and more coffee at home. I was joking about saying like people started their own cafes at home, but from our repeating clients, I see they buying scales, grinders, different tools, I don't know, and more coffee, and somehow already coming to you and asking for psychological help. I'm drinking too much coffee. I need something else. I need to stop. Like it sounds funny, but I think people were even not ready to consume so much coffee at home. And at the same time, it's good for us roasters and people who into this. Also, I'm very glad that more and more people not only are hard users of coffee, but starting to be hard users of coffee culture. They try to learn things, and it can be sometimes we're receiving lots of very, let's say, basic questions about coffee, but we try to answer all of them. And that's why I was telling, like, I think more and more people having contact with good specialty coffee. And I think it's very important for us people working in this side to be as down to earth as possible, because I think we depend on them, and in a good way. So it should be synergy.
Okay. We spoke a lot about the benefits of this combined business model, which indeed helped you a lot during this pandemic time. What about the challenges of trying to be a roastery in a cafe or a combined one? Like, for example, bringing the roaster in the residential area or like in the business area and making all those ventilation and so on. What are the other challenges, like maybe name 2 or 3 that comes to your mind and how you fight them? Who would like to start?
I can go first. There's a couple of challenges, especially in regards to, I would say, smoke hazards, but because I had this roast, it's in the back room. I had this roastery in a different space before I moved it here, and that was a space designed for like operating as a coffee shop. So I had the roaster there, but I wasn't able to roast at the maximum capacity of like a couple of like I was just roasting a couple of batches per day, nothing else, because there was no ventilation, there was nothing, no air conditioning or anything. So you really gotta pay attention to how you set up your roastery in your cafe, if you're planning on working as a cafe as well, because you have to think about all these smoke hazards and just a sec. Oh, hold on. Actually, just a second.
Maybe we can jump to more challenges from Michael. What about you? What was the main challenge?
I mean, originally the main challenge was first just setting up the 220 line, but that was easy enough. But when we had the S7 on loan to us from Stronghold, I had a loyal customer who's an electrician. He basically outfitted the S7 with an extra long extension cord, and I had the S7 on a cart positioned by the door with the ducts out the front door for exhaust, and the S7 plugged into the 220 line for our espresso machine. So that's how I learned on nights and weekends. But then obviously as we evolved, I said, okay, I can't roast coffee with the duct sticking out the front door and also serve customers in normal world. So we have another customer who's an engineer, and he works on ventilation systems and things like that. And I said, hey, I have this new roaster. There's an exhaust tube that comes out of it, but I need it to get to the outside. How can we do that? And he drew up some plans for a duct. You can see this one duct that's going up here. It has double walls. It's double insulated. We could have gone with a single insulated wall, but I said, let me have the double. It's got the more insulation, the better. And it runs up above our ceiling tile and goes out towards our awning. And the awning already had a mesh screen for ventilation, because when we first took this space, there were 4 small openings from the outside of our space to the outside above the windows. And I was wondering, I'm not sure what those things are for, but it looks like they must serve some purpose for ventilating. It turns out the store before us was a photo shop, and they had all this heat being generated by their photo developing equipment. So those were ducts leading to the outside to vent out heat. I didn't know this when I took the space on. I only found this out later. So we already sort of were outfitted. Ideally, we had these portals to the outside that we just had to connect this ventilation duct to. And I already had the mesh in the awning to allow ventilation of, I didn't know at that time what it would be for. And it turns out that now is allowing the smoke to ventilate through the awning and not collect underneath. So ventilation, electricity is very easy. The ventilation issue is probably just a little bit more challenging. The other aspect too that I mentioned to the designer, the engineer of the duct, I said, there might be some particles that are going to be accumulating in the duct too. I'm going to need, and maybe how do I clean these ducts? And he said, oh, that's easy. We can just put a couple of cutouts for you to be able to access. So there's 2 little thumbnail screws that I just undo. I get a tall ladder, and then I can vacuum on either direction of the ducts. I say there's 2 different directions, 2 sides, because in the middle of the ducts, I also had a question to the engineer. how are we going to, I have no idea how much resistance is going to be made by these ducts. I'm not an engineer, but I had that thought in my head, and I don't know how powerful the exhaust fan is on the S7. So he says that's easy. We can solve that problem with a little variable speed fan within the ducts that you can now adjust the airflow in the ducts. So while we're not adjusting airflow on the S7 during the roast, it does that automatically. We're able to also account for, and it turns out with the number of CFMs, the ventilation speed of that fan, I have it on the absolute lowest setting. It turns out that the S7 is actually quite powerful in terms of the ducts and the ventilation fan. So, but we do have about probably a total of 15 to 20 feet of ductwork leading from the roaster to the outside. But a lot of these things
is indeed a big challenge.
Yeah, but we have our community. Like, we were in touch with so many people. We're so fortunate that we have a whole community of experts that are willing to help us. And they were, what did we pay the engineer? We paid several birthday cakes for his daughters and his wife. And that's all he's like. Next birthday cake. Maybe you just you treat us. I said, well, sure, that's fine. We can do that. So there's so much strength in the community, and being connected with your customers. And I think that's one thing that's really in our favor.
This ventilation topic for a second, Emanuelis, how do you make this happen? Because you are in the middle of residential area, like in the building where people actually live. So
yeah, that was a challenge in a way, but at the same time, before looking for, I think we are for 6 years now in this space, in this building. So before looking for it, we had no even Gießen at that time, this roaster. So we were really looking for something which will have the separate ventilation channel. So we knew that, and we were also consulting a lot people. Sorry, maybe I'll close the window. I think it's a lot of noise here.
just ventilation topic.
Yeah, it's ventilation topic. So it was challenge, but also now, and it's a lot of cleaning. Actually, we did almost every year, like a better pipe cleaning. We also, because of the smoke coming to some people windows, we were a bit redesigning the chimney, but still our roaster, let's say it's not that big, but at the moment when we have a challenge and we are thinking about our kind of new bigger roaster, we are looking for a new place, and we really want to be a bit more in the industrial area, or let's say a bit more far away from residential, from sleeping district. And also, I think for us, quite a huge issue is to find place with gas. Although we can work with, let's say, gas balloons. So we're using gas balloons at the moment. So I think because it's really a problem to find gas in new buildings, and Vilnius is like really rebuilding a lot. And in new buildings, they would never put gas because it's kind of unsafe or just not the standard anymore. And I would go and really envy, white envy, by hearing Capo saying that their electricity is like super green, and we were thinking even to buying only electrical roaster. But let's say there are no lots of options for the size we're looking for.
I think S9, 8 kilos.
Okay, that sounds okay. Really,
but that's not available yet, is it?
Not available. So yeah.
No, S9 it is. S9 it is. It's
really.
This year is already available for
production. Okay. So I need to write you email also by asking, but this could be really, I think, something new, something better even for us. So maybe I will really consider as an option. But somehow, with all respect to Stronghold, I never tried it. I really want to try it, and maybe one day I will visit the closest country. I think you are time after time in Warsaw, right? Jane.
Actually, my residence is near Lithuanian border, so it's 4 hours drive. Manuel is more welcome.
Okay. So, and you have stronghold there.
Yes, of course.
Okay. So at the moment we can't leave our city even. So you know it's even more far away than possible. So yeah, gas and ventilation were the challenges, and we are super happy we have almost 99% of beautiful neighbors who enjoy the smell of fresh coffee. We have a couple of filters mainly for the shaft rather for the smell, but it's possible to buy some extra filters to reduce even the smoke, and I think it will be totally smokeless roasting thing. But you need to think about it. All I hear from Michael or Kap, I think it's the same challenges, and the bigger roaster you will have, the
more challenge you have with the same.
Think about it. And in general, that's it. So this is at least for us, the main challenges, but they are huge technical challenges. So it's not that easy, at least for us, to find any space available for setting up Roastery and Café. That's why we even thinking to setting up Roastery now somewhere and to leave a cafe, but ideally we would want to find one place where we can work and roast and brew coffee at the same time.
And be with the customers, talk to them, actually understand what they need exactly. Capo, so maybe coming back to you, what are the other challenges? We spoke about ventilation, that's for sure a big one. Also the heat source. I mean, either gas in Emmanuel's case, or Michael spoke about rebuilding some electricity for this. What other challenges you met while opening up?
Well, it's playing to people's expectations. Like, people are expecting it to be a coffee shop, so they're thinking that you're only going to serve coffee. You don't, as an example, as a double concept place, you might I reserve Tuesday. Sometimes I reserve Tuesdays for roasting, but people don't know that because they don't check their social media. They don't check our social media, nor do they check our website. But because they still have certain expectations that we are a coffee shop. So of course you're going to have coffee serving every day, so we can come in for a coffee. But then when they walk in, they're like, okay, can I have a coffee? They're like, yes, of course you can have a coffee, but like, we just want to let you know that we're also a roastery. So we work in both, we do both things at the same time. And then our customers get confused. Then we get all these questions like how does that work? What do you do? Why are you roasting here and not somewhere else? Isn't this going to affect your business model or anything like that? And it's just it's weird playing to people's expectations that way. No.
Okay, I see. Well, maybe hiring a barista for 1 or 2 days a week, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll just want to jump up to our last question for today. What would you advise those coffee shops who are considering to start roasting but don't know where to start, what to do, what to expect, or are just afraid of all those issues with where do I find green bean, how do I find new skills, what do I do, and so on. Just a couple of maybe motivational, maybe not, a couple of feedback and ideas. What would you wish those coffee shops to think and where to move? Michael, would you like to start?
I say go for it. Jump in. If you're already starting a coffee shop, it's already a huge step. You're already investing a lot in equipment. And for me, when I think about it, for the price of a sophisticated espresso machine, you can have a roaster in your shop. And when we made the transition, originally when we opened up our second location here, we were not roasting, and having that roaster, that piece of roasting equipment in the cafe, I think it piqued people's curiosity. They were asking, "Oh, what is that?" Of course, sometimes we'd get, "What is that? Is that some kind of fancy grinder?" And I said, "No, it's not a grinder. It's actually a roaster." But we were able to then now, I think, build build this reputation and build this new image of being a roastery. And when they see that the roaster is right here in the space and that we're actively roasting while someone else is serving a customer behind the bar, I think it just shows that much more detail and attention to our craft. And I think it's a big benefit. And in addition to the cost savings, obviously, versus buying coffee that's roasted, being able to.
I have like multiple phone calls coming in.
We just started opening our cafe, so we have a couple of orders coming in at the same time. Sorry for the distraction, but we started a little bit late because I had this audio connection problem. But basically, I think it's been a wonderful transition. It's a new way to brand, and I think we're actually going to be changing our name from Nook Bakery and Coffee Bar to Nook Bakery and Coffee Roastery soon as well.
Yeah. So. You should indeed. Thank you, Michael. Manuelis, what would you suggest to those cafes?
Yeah, go for it. I would also say if you have this kind of idea, I think it's a nice twist, nice extra. And I think the most important, you can really play and adjust coffee for yourself, first of all. So you learn a bit more about coffee craft in general as a roaster if you're deciding to. And you should think about planning your time better, because the normal cafe with all the espresso equipment and I don't know, if you're thinking to have cakes, etc., it should take more time. So if you have, again, extra as a roasting machine, so you need to think if you will be also able to manage all these things. So, but we are managing this through just different timings, like different days. But let's say we are sadly not normal cafe. But I think because our roaster is bigger, let's say if 10 years ago I would know about the option of a stronghold, I would totally consider it as a really nice extra value to cafe. And I believe it's now super simple to manage all your roasting, at least as small batches. At least from what I heard from Michael and Capo, you can still spend hours by playing, adjusting it, but technically you can work as a cafe and roast at the same time. So maybe it's not so time consuming. Hardly, we can do this, let's say, roast and be at the same time as a cafe, because Gießen is more noisy, it needs more attention. And we already had some, let's say, situations when we burn our coffee because some curious client is coming and asking, "What are you doing? I want to look." And you start to explaining, and then you see 3 clients coming, and it's a disaster in a way. So we really try not to roast and be open as a cafe. It's pre-pandemic time, so we always doing it only when the doors are closed. But go for it, because even during our roasting workshops, I meet a lot of different people who are, let's say, more coffee enthusiasts. They don't plan to open cafe, but they start to think about roasting coffee at home. And I'm not sure if S7 is best option for home roasting, but I think it's possible. So even if you are not, you don't want or don't have money to open a cafe, you maybe can invest money in roasting at home. You have empty, garage, and maybe it can be a step forward, your next vision to open a bit bigger business. And I think it's nice. It's nice as an idea, and I'm really curious on learning more about Stronghold in general.
It's nice to hear, Manuel. Capo, what would you suggest to those coffee shops struggling?
Well, there's a really good Finnish. It's not a Finnish proverb, but it's a proverb that it's like something that's well planned is halfway done already. And I'm a firm believer in planning over sort of like, I mean, there is a moment when you just have to go in and just commit to it and just do it. But I would recommend everybody just like take a moment, plan it well ahead, know where you're going, know what you want to do, and just then once you know it and once you have everything sort of like set, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do it, this is where I'm going to be in 2 years, 3 years, and this is how I'm going to get there, then it's just a moment. Then you have everything done, you're all set, and then you just literally go and run for that. And it helps you later on in the future, because once you know what you want to do, you kind of set your mind to that mentality that this is where I'm going, this is where I'm going to be headed, and you work for that, and you actively work for that, instead of just like one of my friends who just actually did set up a coffee shop pop-up, did it just like no planning, no nothing, just went in and did it, but it was just a struggle after a struggle after a struggle, because he didn't know what he was going to be doing. He not because he didn't know what he was going to do, but because he hadn't planned for that. But it's just my personal preference, that I like to plan ahead and just have a clear path ahead of me before I commit to something. And I guess it could have helped me in forward, but I think the most important part about that is that it sets your mind to that mentality, and that's, I think, what's most important when you're starting to do something, that you have it, or that you know that you want to do it.
That indeed sounds really great and motivational to end our meeting today. So once again, Emanuelis, Capo, Michael, thank you so much for joining and for all your insights and experience. I'm so glad we had this chat. It's going to be available on YouTube, so we're going to be able to rewatch all those insights and ideas even later on. Thank you everyone for coming and staying until the end. And we're going to see you in exactly 1 month for the next Roastrum, which will be dedicated to styles of roasting, Nordic, Asian, Southern. So quite interesting one, right? So
awesome.
See you here. Thank you so much for joining today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
We're officially open now for the day. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you, Michael.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.